Okay, so when I say the word Alcatraz, what's the first thing that pops into your head? I bet it's something about a dark, lonely prison out in the middle of San Francisco Bay. But here's the thing, that's just one tiny piece of a much, much bigger story. So let's dive in and really get to know The Rock. Right, so what is Alcatraz really? We've all got this image in our heads, right? Concrete, steel bars, some of America's most famous criminals. But is that all there is to it? Not even close. Let's kind of tear down that old image and build a new one. The first word that probably comes to mind is escape. Or, more to the point, the idea that you couldn't. The entire island was engineered to be the ultimate fortress, you know? Surrounded by that freezing cold water and those killer currents, it was built to be inescapable. And then, of course, you think of the names. We're talking about the big ones: Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, Bumpy Johnson. It was basically a who's who of the criminal underworld. And having them there, that really sealed its scary reputation. So that's the legend, isn't it? The unbreakable prison. But what if I told you that whole story, the one we all know from the movies, only lasted for 29 years? Yeah, just 29. The island's real history is way richer and honestly, a lot more surprising. To get to that real history, we have to go back, way back. Before there was a single wall, before a single cell. Back when the only residents on this rock had wings. You know, the name itself actually tells you the very first story. Way back in 1775, a Spanish explorer sailed by and called it La Isla de los Alcatraces, which pretty much just means the island of the pelicans. So long before it was a cage for humans, it was a home for birds. But that quiet little bird sanctuary wasn't meant to last. See, after the gold rush, San Francisco became a huge deal. And the US military looked at this island and saw something totally different: the absolute perfect spot to defend the city. And man, things started changing fast. In 1850, it officially becomes military land. Just a few years later, during the Civil War, it's already pulling double duty as both a fort and a prison. And then by 1909, they start building that huge concrete cell house that we all recognize today. Can you just imagine seeing that? 105 cannons staring out at the Golden Gate. It was this massive, intimidating fortress. But here's the wild part. For all that firepower, those guns never fired a single shot in an actual battle. Not one. Okay, so now we get to the chapter everyone knows. This is when Alcatraz becomes The Rock, America's first supermax prison, the place you send the guys that no other prison can handle. So why here? Why pick this one island? Well, the government chose Alcatraz for one very simple reason. It was isolated. This was the end of the line. If you were too much trouble for other prisons, you got a one-way ticket here. And the goal wasn't to fix you, it was just to contain you, period. And the guest list? Wow. It was a who's who of public enemies. Al Capone is the most famous, for sure. But then you had Robert Stroud, the Birdman of Alcatraz, and this guy Alvin Creepy Karpis, who actually spent more time on the rock than anybody else. We're talking more than 25 years. And this is the escape that became a legend. It's just an incredible story of pure genius. For months, they used sharpened spoons to dig through concrete walls. They made these super realistic dummy heads out of paper mache and real hair to fool the guards. Then they built a raft out of raincoats. And on that night in 1962, they just vanished. To this day, it's one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. So if it was so secure, why they shut it down just a year after that big escape? Well, the answer is pretty simple: money. It was just crazy expensive. It cost more than 3 times as much to keep a prisoner here compared to, say, a prison in Atlanta. On top of that, all that salt water was literally causing the buildings to crumble. The rock was just too expensive to keep open. So the prison closes, the island goes quiet, and you'd think that's the end of the story. But nope. In 1969, Alcatraz suddenly jumps back into the national spotlight for a reason that nobody saw coming. And this next chapter totally redefined what the island meant. For 19 months, a group of Native American activists, they called themselves the Indians of all tribes, took over the whole island. This was a major protest against US government policies that were aimed at erasing tribal cultures and identities. And their claim had deep historical roots. They pointed to this old treaty from 1868 that basically said any retired federal land should be returned to the native people it was originally taken from. And just like that, this island prison was transformed into this powerful new symbol for indigenous rights. And the occupation left a huge mark. I mean, you can still see the physical marks today. Some of the graffiti they painted is still there. But the political impact was monumental. It got so much attention that it helped force a major shift in federal policy, moving it towards self-determination for Native American tribes. It was a huge deal. All of which brings us to today. The island isn't a prison anymore. It's not an active protest site, but it carries every single one of its past lives with it. You can feel it when you're there. And just look at this number. Every year, about 1.7 million people choose to go to Alcatraz. It's the ultimate irony, right? The place nobody could leave has become a place that people from all over the world can't wait to visit. And this is what's so cool about Alcatraz today. It's not just one thing. It's all of its histories living together. It's managed by the National Park Service as a historic prison, yeah, but it's also a protected home for seabirds again. It has these beautiful historic gardens, and it's a permanent landmark celebrating that incredible moment in the indigenous civil rights movement. Alcatraz really proves that a single place can hold so many different truths, you know? It's a fort, it's a prison, it's a symbol of freedom, it's a nature preserve. So it leaves you with this question. When a place has this many layers, which story is the most important one? Or maybe the real story is just how all of them managed to exist together on that one little rock.